the Iowa Public Television Foundation, and by Metro Sales and Service of Des Moines, providing 45 years of experience in helping sewers select from all brands of sewing machines.
The following program is a co-production of SWN Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.
My favorite part of hosting Sewing with Nancy is that I get to work with creative people and share fascinating sewing and quilting techniques. These next 3 episodes will prove my point as you learn quilted photography. Tammy Bowser, the designer and author of the quilted photography concept, is here to teach us how to interpret photographs with fabric. Tammy, working with a photograph and creating a mosaic is a fascinating process. I really look forward to sharing that with our viewers.
Well, I'm happy to be here as well, Nancy. And to give you an idea of my concept, I wanted to share with you a picture of my grandmother, Faye Evelyn Taylor, as a 13-year-old child. And this is my interpretation in fabric. I use 24 fabrics and a gridded system to interpret the photograph, and it's a great way to remember her.
Get inspired to create quilted photography next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, TV's how-to sewing program with Nancy Zeman, is brought to you by Baby Lock, Ginger Scissors, Madeira Threads, Rowenta, Amazing Designs, Koala Cabinets, Prim Drits and Otlights.
Generally on Sewing with Nancy, we complete a project or give you a whole technique during an episode. But in this 3-part series, we're going to build program 1 onto 2 and then finally 3, create one of your great mosaic quilts, Tammy. So we're going to do a quick overview. Now when you created the quilt behind us, again here's that picture of your grandmother, such a charming picture.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
The colors that you chose for the picture are not at all, or for the quilt, are not at all in the picture. There isn't any green in here, or any of this dark navy blue.
I'm glad you noticed that, because that's one of the key points of my technique and what makes it real easy. You can use almost any fabrics you can think of, but you have to have value only.
So you start with a photo, and we're going to use this photo of my son Tom when he got his new puppy for a mosaic or a quilted photograph. And these are the fabrics that Tammy has chosen for us, but you don't see any plums in here or any navy blues, but the value is what you choose.
Yes, you choose 8 light, 8 medium, and 8 dark fabrics. You can choose any assortment you like. You could pick what you think is pretty. In this case, we used some hand-dyed fabrics, and I think they're gorgeous, but we did pick them by light, medium, and dark.
So later on in this first program, we'll give you the basics of how to choose these colors, but you're going to choose random. You can use your fabric scrap box for this project. Then after choosing these fabrics, we're going to kind of cut apart some of the, cut little small sections of each of them.
Yes, you cut a small piece of each one and you put them on a white sheet of paper, and then we photocopy them. We use a photocopy machine that captures grayscale, and you have to be very careful about the copy machine that you use. If you use just one made like an office copy machine, they usually only capture black and white, so it's a real important thing. You can run it through your computer scanner if you happen to have one, because there's a setting to use grayscale.
And you can see the 8 lights, 8 mediums, and 8 darks, how we thought by eyeball that they were in value.
Yes, and we'll show you how to eyeball it too, in case you want to try that technique later. So we cut the photocopy apart, all the different fabrics, and we do this so that you can switch them around till you get them in just the right order. And as I look at this, this looks like it could be a little bit darker, so we just switch it around. And you do the best that you can, and just get them in the right order, the best that you can. And if one happens to be a little bit out of order, the main point is to get a nice gradual progression from light to dark. So if one is out of order a little bit, or if 2 are really close, it's not going to be crucial. So don't stress out, just relax and have fun with the process.
Then we're going to show you in the second program how to use your photo, get it into your computer either by scanning digital photography or getting a CD from when you get your prints developed and put them in your computer.
Yeah,
And then this is the magic of it.
You generate your pattern by computer, so you don't have to figure out where all those fabrics go. We number them after we organize them by number. We do organize them in a box, and we'll show you that in just a second.
You can see it's kind of bitmap there, digitized.
Yes, it divides it up into squares, your actual photograph, and then it numbers them by color value that'll match your fabrics.
Then it prints out a pattern, and it's all numbers, kind of like counted cross stitch.
Yes, almost, except the software that we're using has features that are great for quilted photography instead.
Sure. Then accordingly you cut strips of fabric. This was 1/2 inch wide, so you cut strips accordingly, and they're in numbers in 24 different little bins here. And then the fun begins. This is what I thought was so fascinating, because you tile all those little 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, cover it with fusible interfacing, and
you follow the numbers. It's that easy.
And here we have the photo, one variation of this photo of Tom, and you can see the process, the general process of quilted photography from start to almost finish. We mentioned that choosing color by value is the most important part of this process, and you have many sources of fabric for this process. Perhaps you have a bag of organized batiks. Perfect, but you certainly don't have to have this. If you have a basket of scraps, which has a multitude of fabric types and colors, it's just waiting to be created into a quilted photograph. And Tammy, that's what we used to create this first color selection.
Yes, we use, again, lights, mediums, and darks. That's the most important things. We are not paying attention to the actual colors in the photograph.
And that's the hardest part. That was the hardest part for me to get over.
Well, it's just to wipe those old rules out of your mind. Just don't think about it, and just pick colors, because you like them.
And here you can see when we put the values together, it really is a very pleasing color arrangement.
Yes, and it moves from light to dark. I picked 8 light, 8 medium, and 8 dark.
Now this has kind of a muted hue to it.
Yes.
So you also did one for us that has a much brighter cast.
Yes, if you're going to use muted colors, try to stick with them. Don't mix up the two different types of ranges. These are much more cleaner, clearer colors, and you just start from the light, clear pastels, and you move into the mediums and then to the darks. But the process is just the same. It's just your selections.
You'll notice that in the color selections, you'll have prints, you'll have solids. We even have a check. And you wouldn't think about that for a photograph of a person.
You wouldn't think about it, but it works wonderfully well, and especially when you have a whimsical collection of bright colors and prints.
Now, not all fabrics work.
Yeah, not all fabrics work. There's some that you definitely should avoid, and here's some here that I want to show you. There's you can see this has a dark background and the really light pink flowers. It's sort of like a polka dot. Is it the light color? Do you pay attention to the light color or the dark color when you're choosing? Is that a medium or a light? And then this one, it's obvious, because if you were to cut this into small pieces, some would be totally, very light, and then you have on the flowers it would be kind of dark. So that one's out. And this has the same problem. It's not as extreme as this one I just spoke about, but again we have the light dots and the much darker background. And in this one we have the same thing. We have very light areas and very dark areas. Just pay attention. And this batik is a beautiful batik, but it doesn't work for quilted photography, because again we have very light areas. You can use batiks, but you just pick selections that have the variance not as extreme.
So we're looking for just the value. We're not paying attention to the color. And for quilters, that is a kind of a different process of looking at it. We have a stack of fabrics, and we're going to watch Tammy how she selects coloration and gets them into stacks, first of all, of light, medium, and dark, and then how she judges value. And this is where I learned so much, and my concern of working with this topic kind of just went away.
Yes, so when you have a stack, or like your scrap basket, we just pulled those out of here so we can show you this. These are real scraps, believe it or not. We're not faking this for you.
No, you can see there's parts missing. They're very wrinkled.
And what I'm doing is just going by eyeball. We'll also show you another method, you know, after I make sure that you understand this, as I teach you this way.
There's a bigger piece. We'll
yes.
cast
Again,
that.
these are real scraps here. You just eyeball it. You pick the lighter ones, and then you go the best you can just by eyeballing it. And I'll show you how to put it in order the right way. Or make sure, double check yourself, make sure that it's right. I won't do all of them here because it's not necessary. But you just start at the beginning at the lightest one, and then the one that you have chosen next to be a little bit darker, you just look at those two. You focus in on these two instead of trying to determine the value of all of them at the same time. And then it takes a job that could be very big and confusing down to small decisions. So to me, this one does look a little bit darker, so then that's fine. We can move on to the next one. And that looks a little bit darker than that.
So 2 and 3 you're looking at right now.
Or does it? Does it look like it to you, Nancy?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay. And again, so then we go on to the next one.
Now that one I might move around.
Right. So this one seems a little bit lighter. So at that point, if you have a question, then you leave this one, you leave that there, then you just move the one in question until you find the right place. And if we think it goes there, then we just keep on going. Again, we ask the same question over and over. Is this next one darker than the previous one? And if your answer is yes, then you keep going. So I think we have a problem here right now. See, this one seems lighter to me.
Yes.
So at that point, I just move it around until I find the right place. I asked the question there, is it darker than that one? It looks like it to me, so we'll just move it over. And you just continue through your whole stash till you have the 8 lights, 8 medium, and 8 darks.
So you can see we don't have any color range here, not at all. But we have a little issue with the color right in your hand.
Yes, when you're using a color like red, try to be deliberate with red. If you use red, use a lot of red. Don't try to throw it in as an accent. I mean, no matter where you put this, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. So this probably would work better in one of the you know, that other assortment of the bright colors. So stick it there, or if you're going to do something like a red apple or something, then you would choose all reds or something.
Sure. And you have some batiks. You know, batiks are kind of hand-dyed, or they're commercially dyed, but have a variation of color. And you can grab a section.
I'll just start a little assortment here. I'm going to pick some lights, you know, just again eyeballing it. I'm not working too hard, and I don't think you should either. I think you should take it easy, let it be fun, like quilting it should be. And I'll pick a couple of mediums, what I think is mediums, and I'll pick a few what looks like darks. And it really is this easy to do. It really is. Don't make it too hard, because then you're just creating work for yourself. So again, I just put them in order from light to dark the best that I can, just eyeballing it.
It's a great process to watch you do this. Really, the light bulb went off.
Yes, I'm trying to teach you.
And you've done a fine job of it. So you can see the process, how Tammy is working through this, which any color combination will work.
Yes, and again, I'm just going from the lightest to the darkest, and then I ask myself, I'll start at the beginning, you know, is that first one lighter than the second one? And if your answer is yes, then you just move on to the next color or the next fabric you've chosen. And again, that one looks like it's lighter, so I pull it out and find where it should be. Is it darker than that one? It seems to be. So.
Great.
You just keep moving on. And again, sometimes I find that I change it. I think it's working. And when I put it between the two, then I said, oh no, it still looks darker, it still looks lighter. So you just keep moving around and you do the best you can.
In the reference book that accompanies this 3-part series, there will be 2 sheets that you photocopy. And after choosing your 24 fabrics, in that same sequence, you place your 8 lights, 8 mediums, and 8 darks. And they're numbered 1 through 24. Now, we mentioned this earlier, you then photocopy these with a grayscale. We'll highlight again,
Grayscale.
color copier.
You can use a photocopy machine that's digital that captures gray. You can also run it through your computer. If you have a scanner, most of the time they have a grayscale option.
So you see that these fabrics then show their value, and that's the whole premise here, and you cut them apart. They have numbers so that you know exactly what.
You can refer back to your actual fabrics because you have a key so you can tell what's what, because they actually change a lot when you take away the color and you're only looking at the value.
And here we have those fabrics in 1 through 24, and we can look at these, especially these first two. We already know we would like to switch those.
Yes, you know, when we're looking at it here, we can actually see that this what we have here for number 1, or we thought was number 1, is a little bit darker. So in that case, you know, you just move them around. You just switch them. And this is just another way to double check, or if you don't feel confident in yourself and your eyeballs. And I see this number 4 looks like it could be switched with number 5. And then you do the best that you can. When you back up or you hold it away, you should be able to see that it's a progression from light to dark. Do the best that you can. If there's 2 that happen to be a little bit switched, it won't harm it. We still have that natural that progression from light to dark, and it'll be just fine.
Now I want you to save your printout or your organization of your lights to darks, because in the second episode of this series I'm going to show you how to cut these and prepare them. But now we'd like to take some time to show you more of Tammy's quilts so you can look at the color range and the types of colors used. This little baby is adorable, but he's all of calicos or funny little prints.
Yeah, funny little prints, stripes, plaids, everything.
Yeah, here's a stripe in here. Who would ever think you'd be able to get a person's image using stripes?
Yeah, and this color selection is truly random. I didn't make any plan. It's value only. I think it's a really charming one.
Yes. Now this color selection will show you the photo of this little baby so you can see what Tammy started with. Here you can see him. And babies' faces are ideal for mosaic quilts.
They absolutely are. I like to crop in really close. It makes a nice compact little project.
And this is random, but yet you started with warms for the face and went to cools for the darker tones.
Yes.
Now here's a close-up of a $5 bill.
Yes, in this selection of fabrics, I used green primarily, from white all the way to green, because I really wanted it to look like money. And you can use a selection of fabrics and choose one color.
And if someone who is a banker or accountant, perfect accent for their wall. I bet you can recognize who this is. This is a self-portrait of me. Nancy has the picture. I do somewhere. You describe it and I'll find the picture.
I used again a selection of fabric from warm colors moving to the cooler purple as the darkest color. And you'll see that in her photo there isn't any purple or blue. Your hair isn't purple, but wow, what a beautiful image that you have created. And we'll show you how to do this later in the series, but this just is concentrating on color. These same colors were used right here. Yes, these are the exact same fabric assortment, but since it's a different photograph and the pattern that we used had the numbers in a different sequence, it looks totally different, but it's the same fabric.
And now you know the basics of choosing fabrics. In the sewing segments of today's program, Tammy and I worked with the concept of making a quilt from a photograph, making it a mosaic type quilt. And you didn't see this one before. You can obviously recognize the Mona Lisa. And the Mona Lisa in the original painting, I don't think has any squares in it, but it also doesn't have these color ranges. Yet it's very distinguishable of who this picture is. It's because Tammy chose colors of fabric, 24 colors, but the value was important. 8 lights, 8 mediums, 8 darks. It really doesn't matter on the actual color. A print wouldn't be used, but the value of it is what allows your eye to see the photograph. It is really a unique concept, and we'll be working with these fabrics in the next 2 episodes of Quilted Photography and show you how to get your design, your photograph in the fabric. It's a great topic. Speaking of great topics, now it's the Ask Nancy section of the program, and I have some questions to answer, hints, creative kindness idea to pass along. First, we're going to start with hints. Gordon and Darlene Lehman live in Grantsburg, Wisconsin. And actually Gordon wrote this to me, and he said, when I chain stitch sections together as I quilt, I place a plastic basket behind my machine, and then I just let the joined pieces fall into it after they're stitched. The sections fall back and forth, and they don't get tangled. A simple idea, but very valuable. This snapshot shows exactly where the waste paper basket is placed, the plastic liner in it, and as the sections come feeding off from the back of the machine, they just fall gracefully into this basket. A good thought, a simple thought, but very practical and useful. Thanks both to Gordon and Darlene. Another hint comes from Baldwinsville, New York, and we're going to hear from Ann Sporell. And currently, she writes, I've been making a paper-pieced wall hanging, and there are lots of threads and bits of fabric galore. Rather than tracking all of these thread ends around my home, I wear a half apron to catch the litter. This apron keeps all these little thread ends off my clothes. When I finish at my machine, I simply untie it and shake it out into a waste paper basket. I like this idea, Anne, of a half apron, because the half apron, kind of like a carpenter's apron, kind of small and short, doesn't get in the way of your sewing or quilting, but it does catch the lint of threads and the little fabric ends. Again, a good thought. Now we're going to hear from Janice LaRoe, who lives in Sarasota, Florida. She has a question for me, and we're going to kind of answer it with another viewer's idea. I belong to a quilting group that makes service projects for a variety of community groups in our area. We have a happy problem, and I hope you can help us with this. Here's our problem. We have lots of wonderful fabric samples that have been donated from a friendly local fabric shop. These are drapery as well as upholstery samples, and come complete in a book that has been stapled closed. After taking the paper off these fabric samples, there's about a 6 to 8 inch piece of fabric that's usable. The problem is that they're not washable. They have to be dry cleaned. It seems a waste not to use them, but I don't know how to use them for wonderful treasures for others. Can you help with some sewing ideas? Well, Janice, my suggestion is going to be to make a tote. Make totes out of these scraps, perhaps for homeless shelters. Fill them with toiletries, soaps, toothbrush, toothpaste, etc. Because our next idea comes from Phyllis Johnston, who lives in Cheney, Washington, and this is kind of her idea for preschoolers. Here it is. I watched your series called Scrap Happy Quilting and thought you might like to know what I do with scraps. I learned that local organizations needed cloth bags for preschoolers, foster children, and like, so I designed a bag that is about the size of a grocery bag. I started making the bags from old blue jeans, but people have been giving me many more fabric remnants, so now I use all kinds of fabrics. I cut 3.5 inch squares and piece them together to make the desired size of the front and the back. And then I separate the strips to make handles, etc., and also make pockets. She makes about 20 each month for 3 different groups. I donate any small scraps that are left over to preschools so they can use those for craft projects. So you can use Phyllis's idea, Janice, and here is a snapshot, a digital shot actually, from Phyllis showing about, I'd say 15 or so of the Scrap Happy little totes she makes for preschoolers. Very colorful, very fun. What a nice thought to do. And we thank you for that. For all of you who send in your creative kindness ideas, we're going to send you a certificate where you sew and quilt for others. We appreciate the efforts that you make, and Phyllis, we thank you. Well, if you'd like to send me a hint, an idea, a snapshot, show and tell, creative kindness, we'd like you to do that. Send it to Sewing with Nancy, P.O. Box 683, Beaver Dam, Wisconsin 53916. And you can also email me at asknancy@sewingwithnancy.com. If I use your hint or pass along your idea, your question on the air, I'll send you a copy of Sew Gifts with Love. We'll be back next time with the second program of quilted photography. Tammy will be back showing great ideas on working with the photo and your computer.
Tammy Bowser's 80-page More Amazing Quilted Photography book includes all the information from this 3-part series, plus more creative ideas. It's $34, including shipping. To order the book, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com. Order item number MAQP3, credit card orders only, or send a check or money order for $34 to the address on your screen. Visit Nancy's website at sewingwithnancy.com for more information on this program. Sewing with Nancy has been made possible by grants from the following companies: Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Ginger Incorporated, makers of scissors and shears for home, industry, and school. Ginger, a tradition of quality. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effect threads, because creativity is never black and white. Amazing Designs embroidery designs and software for any embroidery machine. Amazing Designs. Koala Cabinets, Australian sewing stations designed for maximum storage in minimum space. Rowenta, performance and results for all types of ironing. Rowenta, the choice of professionals. Prim Dritz and Otlight,